What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of Free Country. I hope you had a great weekend, and I hope your Monday is off to a great start. I had a funny weekend. Well, I guess it's only Saturday. It's Saturday night when I'm recording this, and today was just a weird day. I really thought I had reeled in a big fish for the podcast. I DM'd Riley Green, who, my followers are in love with. And I really like. I've liked most everything that he's put out thus far. I think he's kind of one of the leaders in this neo-traditional movement that has been really appealing to see happen. I DM'd him earlier this week and said, hey man, you're going to be in Bristow, Virginia, which is like an hour and a half north of Charlottesville. Any chance we could record something for the podcast? Because I'm trying to get some guests in on the podcast. And he was like, hit me up closer to the show. So a few days later, Saturday morning, I said, hey man, what does your day look like? Can you swing it? And he was like, we're at the venue, and we're at the venue, and I'm not very busy till 5. That's what he said. So I'm like, sweet, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna get a guest. This is awesome. So I then respond to him and say, okay, I respond in 9 minutes. At 1:59, I respond, and I say, hey man, I'm gonna come up, like I can be there at 4. Here's my number. Give this to your tour manager, whoever your kind of point of contact is, so they can let me in. And I didn't get a confirmation, but think about my timeline here. It was 1:59 that I sent this and say I can be there at 4 because it takes an hour and 40 minutes to drive there. So I don't have time to wait for a confirmation. If I'm going to get there and record an interview for the podcast and even a little something for the channel that I wanted to bank, I was like, I gotta just like go ahead and go. So I gather up all my gear, like my camera, my tripods, and my battery packs, and my microphone, and I go up there. And I'm like hoping that I'm going to get a confirmation, but I was like, I don't want to bother him. It's just in the DMs. And then things kind of went awry. So I get to Jiffy Lube Live, this venue, and I kind of talk to the attendants at the parking lot, and I'm like, I'm part of press. I've been here before, because I have interviewed Maddie and Tay at the same venue. I was like, I know exactly where to go. So I go to this entrance, and I'm sitting, and I park my car, and then I get to security, and I'm like, hey, so I've kind of exchanged a direct message with one of the performers tonight. Like, am I on any kind of list? They're like, no. And they're like, you need to get in touch with his staff. But I'm like, not in touch with any of them. I just have a DM from Riley. And again, no confirmation that I was supposed to be there. That's a key part of the story here. So I then end up sitting with all the security people, with Jeremiah, and with Tim, with Nick. I got to be friends with some of my security friends. But honestly, like my heart was kind of sinking and sinking and sinking from the moment I got there. I was like, I have a feeling this is going to go disastrously, and I'm not ever going to get to see Riley today, am I? And I've roadied for the Lone Bellow before, kind of, and done their merch table, and I know how sound checks are, and I know that right before a show, that's when everyone is trying to, like, be like, oh, do you have tickets for me? Hey man, like I'm in town, I'd love to see you, from old friends. And they also have meet and greets, and there's just a lot, and you want to focus and be ready to perform. So I understand that before a show is not the easiest time. So I sit there for like almost an hour at security, and it felt kind of like August, maybe 12 years ago when I was getting to UVA, and I was trying to get into a Kappa Sig party on the first weekend of college. And everyone was like, you have to name 5 brothers. So I don't know 5 brothers in Kappa Sig on the first weekend of school. So everyone, me and all my friends knew the name Matt Clayberg. We're like, say Matt Clayberg. And then there was another guy named Wilson Oswald. But everyone was like, say Oz, don't say Wilson. Say Oz, that's what people call him. And then my other friends are like texting, trying to get names of brothers. And we're like stuck at the door where some frat bro has like his arms over his puffed up chest, not letting us in, holding a Sharpie all arrogantly. It reminded me of that. That's how I felt. I felt so pitiful standing at the door, and I was like, oh gosh, this is so awkward. This meant more to me than it meant to them. I feel like this is such a desperate look. I've now sent a bunch of DMs being like, I'm at the gate, like, can someone come let me in? And I just felt pitiful. I felt like such a dweeb. And Anyway, security politely is like, all right, man, penetration is an issue, so can you leave? And I respected it. I honestly respected them. They were so nice to me. They gave me a seat, hung out in the shade with them, but they were like, okay, it's time for you to go. So I left, or I tried to. I go to the parking lot, and my car is just surrounded by tailgating. At this point, the tailgating has started, and there's cornhole happening. There is drunken Bud Lights, drunken people sipping Bud Light, like blaring music on the back of their tailgates, and there's no way I can move my car unless I end like 9 parties all at once. So I'm not going to do that, and I don't think I even would have been able to convince the people to move. So then suddenly I'm just like, oh gosh, now it's 5 something, and I'm stuck at this concert that I don't even have tickets for. It's Riley Green, and then Chris Lane, and then Brad Paisley was the headliner. I'm just stuck at this concert till like 8 p.m. with all my gear, and I can't move my car, and until all these, drunk tailgaters leave, I'm stuck here. So I ended up I sent out a tweet and said, if anyone else is here in the parking lot in Bristow, let's hang, basically. And no one took me up on it. Thanks, guys. I guess none of you were at the concert. Well, there was one guy, but we'll get to him. But I kind of was like, okay, maybe I should do like man on the street type interviews. And someone actually tweeted in the same thing. Why don't you like interview people? And so I was like, okay, can I work up the nerve to do that? Can I figure out the right mic setup such that I could actually just kind of set up a tripod and interview people on camera? And I was like, what would I ask them? And is it awkward? And just the day wasn't going how I thought it was going to go. And I was just feeling awkward about the whole thing. So I start to like work up the gumption to actually interview some people and end up just kind of making friends with this one table of guys. They were at kind of a picnic table, and they were asking what I was doing, and they were talking about how they wanted to start a podcast about soccer. So if you guys are listening, I hope you do it. Take the dive. But we got into a good conversation, and then Andrew Cohen, a friend of mine in Nashville that had seen my tweet, he swooped in out of nowhere and hooked me up with Chris Lane's manager, who gave me an incredible pair of tickets. So I ended up getting to see the show, and I didn't get to see Riley's set, ironically, but I saw Chris Lane's, and I saw Brad Paisley's, and Riley hit me back and was like, hey man, I'm sorry, I don't check my socials that often, I didn't know you were coming, and I felt very pitiful again. I felt like, let me tell you what I felt like. I once had a roommate named Zach, and and Zach was someone that like I didn't consider myself that close to, but he was engaged, and I came home one day, and he was in the kitchen, and I overheard a conversation on the phone where he was like talking about wedding dates, and he was like, yeah, I just need to figure out from Grady if he is going to be available on this one weekend in May. And I remember kind of walking upstairs and thinking, golly, like, I didn't think we were that close that I would be in his wedding. That's kind of weird to me. But I guess maybe he doesn't feel like he's that close with many people. So I ended up like confronting Zach later and saying like, hey man, I just want you to know, like, I heard the conversation you were having like a day ago, and if you're worried about like when I'm available in May, I'm available all of May, so like I could totally do wedding stuff whenever. And then the worst thing on earth happened. He says, oh, I have a brother named Grady. And I wanted to die. Like, I just wanted to disappear from the face of the earth, because I was like, yeah, totally, Zach, yeah, that makes so much sense, honestly. Wow, that is kind of presumptuous of me. I shouldn't have said that. And it was a horrible feeling. But a little bit of that same feeling is how I felt today when I got the DM back from Riley, and it was like, hey man, I didn't check my socials that often. I didn't even know you were here. It made sense. But we're going to find another time at some point when he's in Charlottesville, and I feel like it taught me something. I learned something today, which was maybe, look, I've set up this whole studio. I've built this whole studio here. People come to Charlottesville. Just be patient. I'm in such hustle mode, and I'm going as hard as I can trying to make the channel happen that I don't know, I just got so excited, and I want to reel in a guest and I want to get, I mean, I have one booked for November. That's a ways away. I'm trying to get Casey Musgraves in on this podcast. That would be obviously a pretty big get. But I just want to get some people on here. And I got so excited at the prospect that I just went for it. And I drove up. And then when nothing happened, I was like, oh gosh, I feel like this looks so manic. I feel like this is an embarrassing look. Desperate Grady. And it's like, oh dude, he's just not that into you. Not that into getting this interview. So, and honestly, it was kind of my fault. I should have gotten a confirmation. I just gotta, what is it, hold my horses or something, and just go a little bit slower. I'm just trying to make a lot happen at once. But the show ended up being amazing. It was so good to get to see Brad Paisley live. Brad is an amazing performer. Brad is so comfortable on stage. He is someone, I'd never actually seen Brad Paisley play a show before, and he's so present. That's really what I took away. Brad is completely present, and what would I say? He has such charming wit. He is very interactive with the audience. I mean, at one point, a little kid with a sign that said, "Can we trade guitars?" He had a little Fisher-Price guitar. Brad just gave him his guitar and took the little Fisher-Price one and said, "Okay, get good at that thing." Another time he saw a couple holding a sign that had the lyrics to Then in the shape of a heart, and he went and signed their poster. Another time he saw a kid in a birthday hat and asked him if it was his birthday. He was just really, I was amazed how interactive he was with the crowd, and you could really feel that he was there. He was just in it, and he was in his show, and it must take a lot of experience to get to that point. You must have to just perform to really develop that ability to be calm enough that you are just feeling what you're feeling in the moment, that you're really seeing people, that you're experiencing life, that you're able to see kind of the baggage and the excitement and the hope and the dreams and the laughter that they're bringing to your show. Because it's really hard, I think, for a lot of performers to do anything but their act. But Brad felt so comfortable with his act that he was able to really just give on this extra level of wit and banter with the crowd. I mean, I experienced this on YouTube. I'm even experiencing it right now. I'm filming this podcast for the first time, and I'm like very aware of the camera and trying not to perform because I'm trying to be present with myself so I can be present with you guys as listeners. And I have to just like almost shield the camera from my eyes and not look at it because it does something different. But Brad can't do that on stage. He's got to look in the proverbial camera, which is the audience. And yet, he doesn't feel like he's doing something disingenuous. I was just really impressed with him as a performer. He's a great guitar player. He's very energetic. He does solos all the time, and he can move his fingers quickly. He's got a lot of fiddle solos in his show too, and some steel guitar solos. It was really musical and lovely. And you just, concerts like that are always amazing because you realize how deep the bench is of songs. I would say my favorite songs that Brad sang were Letter to Me. I really felt how good that song was. And what else did I love? I love a song I don't even like that much. She destroys me in that t-shirt. What is that song called? The Perfect Storm, I think. Oh, but The Perfect Storm, here's the negative to the Brad Paisley concert. The graphics behind him are so annoying. They're really bad. They're really, really bad. They're very, I said they reminded me of kind of the visuals that play when you're bowling and you get like a spare, and it's kind of this bad pixelated animation. Emily Yar, a reporter from the Washington Post that I'm friends with, I had a better seats than her for my comp tickets, so I was like, yo, come up here. And so we watched the Brad Paisley portion of the concert together. She said they all looked like screensavers. And they did all look like screensavers. There's a graphic playing behind The Perfect Storm as he's describing this woman who's the perfect storm of things that just looked so janky. Like literally just a repeated image of waves with lightning bolts. And there was a lot of those. There was a lot of really, really distracting bad graphics behind Brad. And I feel like he's probably really loyal to his team. And this is some like 60-year-old that used to be a graphic designer that made some of these backgrounds, and they're just they cheapen the show, I really think. So some of them are funny. Some of the ones that are a little more professional, that are kind of music videos of his that are playing behind him, those work. But some of the big ones, I don't know. It was not a good look to me, and maybe I was too close to the stage for them to look good. But yeah. Chris Lane, the opener. Chris Lane is someone that, look, his team is the one that gave me tickets, so I don't want to be a dick right now. But I will say about Chris, I'm not really a huge fan of his music. I actually thought Laps Around the Sun was a way better album than I was expecting last year. Although, I Don't Know About You, which is that sign that's like, what's your name, what's your sign, what's your birthday, what's your wrist tattoo, Bible verse say? It kind of has that skeezy, like, playa in a club vibe to me. It's in the Snaptrack video. That song I can't stand, and there's a lot of his songs that I really, really don't like. Fix is that same way. There's something overly smooth and playa-ish about his music that I just don't like. But he loves being on stage. That is one thing you can say for sure about him. He loves being on the stage, and he does perform. Now, I felt like the combination of playing I Don't Know About You straight into this section where he says, now we're going to play some real country music. And he plays a kind of medley where he sings Watermelon Crawl and I Got Friends in Low Places. And then he plays All I Do Is Win, Win, Win No Matter What. And then he just holds up an American flag that he's been wearing around his neck. It was interesting. It was quite a cacophony of different types of things. But I think he actually was a really good performer. I hope if they push a single from that album that they push Fishin' is a really good song if they go to another song from Laps Around the Sun. I like that. I do think he has some good music. He clearly can move around on the stage and likes it, but he didn't have that same kind of what I would call authenticity and presence that Brad Paisley has. It's a lot of confidence, but yeah, it definitely, it was helpful to see the two of them, because here's someone that's young in their career, and I feel like there's a bit of a distance to, like, you know, he feels very like this is an act, and then Brad felt very present. So it ended up being an interesting night, a really cool night, and I'm really glad I got to see Brad Paisley live. This week's first filmed podcast is brought to you by Ridge Wallet. Ridge, ever dear to me, Ridge. My first sponsor, these guys gave me this nice aluminum metal wallet that I've now been using for months. Very small, your cards fit right in it. When you're going to something like a concert tonight, it's very nice because it helps your pockets not look all bulky. You can sit down and leave your wallet in your front pocket. It doesn't bother you. So you can get 10% off your first order of Ridge if you use the code Grady at their site, or if you go to ridgewallet.com/Grady and pick yourself up one of these nifty little guys. Thanks, Ridge. But that's enough about that night. This week had a lot more going on than just the events of tonight. And the biggest news of the week in the country music world was definitely that Luke Combs officially broke the record for the longest running #1 country album that was set by Always and Forever by Randy Travis, which once held the pole position for 43 weeks. Now, This One's For You by Luke Combs has been #1 for 44 weeks. And Randy Travis released a really, really nice statement on Instagram about it and basically just congratulated Luke and said it's nice that there is still like authentic country music being made and consumed and enjoyed. So it was a really classy way to do it. And Luke responded and just said, you know, what an honor to kind of carry on that tradition and for Randy to kind of put his stamp of approval on his 30-year record being broken. Now, the caveats to this are the same caveats that are always going to be present when we're talking about records being broken. And that is just that, that's just that album sales aren't what they used to be. Now we kind of have this amalgamation of streaming and it's things that are, if you get 1,500 streams, that counts as an album, quote unquote, unit that has now been moved. And like Luke Combs has, I guess, in that sense, sold a bunch of records, but really he's, gotten a lot of streaming and they re-released that record. And you could definitely look at the fact that people went to stores and bought Randy Travis's record at such an extravagant level that he was number one for that long as a more impressive achievement. Because it's not like they could like re-release remixes of the tracks and stuff like that. The way that Luke Combs kind of released the deluxe version of this album that added new songs and that kind of kept up appeal. I'm just saying that's a caveat that should be there, but charts are just charts, They're useful for measuring like who's cool right now. And I should also say that charts, this is a thing I think about a lot. Charts, it's in the best interest of charting organizations to loosen the rules such that records continue to be broken, It's good for them being paid attention to, in a way. So I don't know. I'm not trying to suggest like Billboard's all a big conspiracy, but, everyone's trying to stay relevant as they age, all these companies, and why would Billboard make it harder for songs to break records? It's a good headline when a song breaks a record. So I do think, I don't know, that's neither here nor there. That's just a thing, I think, but it's really a testament to how big Luke Combs has become. I mean, Beer Never Broke My Heart just became his 6th straight number 1 song, and Nathan Kanich, who's someone I really respect, he wrote an article this week basically saying, like, Luke is good, but are we all, like, crazy in our fandom of him? Is he this good that he's, like, the second coming? And are we all just kind of overly freaking out about how good Luke Combs is? I think it's a really interesting article, and I think it has a point. I mean, Hurricane, I was not that impressed with. I didn't get why Hurricane was seen as this awesome country song. I thought it sounded like your standard pop country song about a girl that is a storm. But I definitely think that as I have sort of delved deeper into his catalog, as I've heard songs like, even a little bit Beer Never Broke My Heart, I'd say the moment I kind of really turned my head and noticed him again was when I heard, whatchamacallit, When It Rains It Pours. When It Rains It Pours was really when I took a second look at Luke and started to really realize, oh, this guy's doing something different and it sounds really, really good. And on his new EP, the prequel, I think Luke has really arrived. I mean, I think those are 5 excellent songs. All 5 of the songs on that EP are great. And that's really where I think, like, I even told Nathan that on Twitter. I said, I kind of was with you until I heard the prequel. But even though I'm Leaving is an amazing song, Moon Over Mexico is an amazing song, Lovin' on You is an amazing song, and Beer Never Broke My Heart's pretty darn fun. Now that it's number 1, I would say the next song they got to push, and they're crazy if they don't push it, is Even Though I'm Leaving, which is a song that has kind of an evolving chorus of, first he's a little boy and he's scared his dad is, gonna leave the room and leave the monsters to get him. It's kind of like Monsters by Eric Church. And the dad's like, even though I'm leaving, I'll be right by your side. Fast forward a little bit, and the dad's going off to war. Or maybe the kid's going off to war. Someone's going off to war, and they're like, even though I'm leaving, I'll be right there. And can we all guess where this is going? Someone gets really old, and then, even though I'm leaving, I'll be right by your side. It's one of those classic evolving country choruses, and it's a classic. It's a classic waiting to happen. So that's gotta be the next single in my mind, and I hope it is. But Luke is just, the king of the world in country music right now, and honestly, it's kind of hard to fault him for it. It's kind of, I feel like I've talked about him almost every week of this podcast. We're now on the 11th episode, but I found myself listening to his Angry Birds song again this week. Again, I found myself listening to his Angry Birds song. I just like Luke Combs. He's fun to root for. Speaking of big country artists, let's talk about some of the new music that came out this week. And the first one, and probably the biggest one in terms of sales and attention, was Kip Moore's comeback single. Not really like he's gone away, but it's the launch single of his new album. It's called She's Mine. Now, Kip has been someone that I've been intrigued by and liked for a very long time. I've actually met him. We went to, it was when I worked at Entertainment Weekly, and we went to some very posh seafood restaurant. And I remember he wanted to order a burger, but my editor had chosen the restaurant, so I was like, nah, man, we're at a seafood restaurant. So I think he tried to get like a fish burger. Anyway, that's when I met Kip, and then I met him again in Nashville for an interview that never ran. So we've done a whole lot of nothing in our 2 interactions, but Kip is someone that has a kind of Springsteen-y arena rock sound, and I feel like he really knows his sound and has pushed into it more and more and more and more and more with every album, even though he has not had the radio success of his first album. You know, he came out with Something About a Truck, that was his big debut, and then Hey Pretty Girl was a hit, Beer Money was a hit, and then after that, Kip really has not been, you know, given the VIP treatment at radio. He really hasn't. But he's kept doing his own thing, and he is such a good live performer. I actually saw him at the same venue I was at tonight a few years ago when he was opening for Dierks Bentley, and I was like, this dude has a few hits, and he has the crowd wrapped around his finger. A super dynamic performer, and he is developing a major fan base. It really reminds me of how people have been, like, people are kind of super loyal to someone like Eric Church. They like him. They like his brand of badassery, and they like when he does what he wants. We all like that in artists. We all like them to be the kind of confidence that we don't necessarily have. There's something escapist in watching an artist truly do what they want. And so Kip's really done that. And he's still doing it. And on this song, She's Mine, I feel like it's just cool. It's such a statement to put out a song with this sound. It's really rocking. It is that kind of like torchy arena sound. And it's a hopeful song about, you know, maybe this girl is in Memphis or maybe she's in some other place, but wherever she is, if you see her, tell her she's mine. And it's kind of this like absurdist, hopeful statement that, you know, there's a girl out there for him. And I feel like the music kind of captures that traveling energy and that hopefulness in its, how would I describe the production? Rollicking and, I don't know, rollicking. We're going to go with rollicking nature. Kip sounds really good on it and kind of gravelly. I guess he wrote this song a long time ago, like 10 years ago, but people like it. I like Kip. He does make me think about, like, why do I just buy into the marketing around Kip? Am I part of, like, kind of the cult of Kip fans that just sees what he, like, this kind of independent streak in him and is drawn to it? Because it's not especially country, this sound. And would I have the same reaction if Florida Georgia Line were doing a really Florida Georgia Line-ish type thing? But I think, yeah, you know, it makes me ask that question. I think I have more integrity than to just totally change my opinion, but yeah, for some reason Kip makes me question if I think I just like him. So I wonder if I afford other artists that kind of patience, I guess. Or if I let them do what they want as much as I let Kip. What else was new this week? Miranda Lambert had a new single, and it's called, not single, just a pre-release song called Mess With My Head. And this is a dirty song. Miranda is leaning into this kind of bad girl image. Well, yeah, just a really kind of like sassy rock star image. This song, speaking of rock star, sounds much more kind of alt-rock than it does country. She says it's inspired by living in New York, which has given her a certain edginess in her taste and made her music maybe less wholesome sounding or less acoustic. But this song says, Miranda says something about, like, she wants, like, to put the jeans on the floor. If it ain't love, then I like it better than before. I let you mess with my head. So she's saying, like, if it ain't, that's a really sadistic lyric when you think about it. If it ain't love, then I like it better than before. She's basically saying, like, I prefer trysts and sort of naughtiness more than I even like love. Which, I don't know, it kind of dovetails nicely with the song Vice that was on Miranda's last album, but it's like leaning in and happy about her escapades rather than feeling bad about them. I think it's a cool song. I don't love it, but I like it. Now, a song I do love is Lady Antebellum's new single, Pictures. You guys hear this song? I think it's really good. It's a song about how they looked happy in pictures when you look back on their relationship, but the relationship actually wasn't good. And I think they nail it. They really do. This has a lot of imagery. I love that we get in the very first verse that like 4x6 or 5x7s. They name the size of the picture. They name some of the places that they've been. This is the kind of specificity that I didn't get on their launch single, What If I Never Get Over You? And we get these really specific verses describing pictures, kind of like Refrigerator Door on the new Luke Combs EP. It's describing pictures, and then the hook is, man, we sure looked happy in pictures. And the song sounds really upbeat, but it's really sad. And what I like is that also the story is that this relationship looked really upbeat, but it was really sad. It's really well done in that way. So I think they did an awesome job with this track. The harmonies sound good. I feel like Lady Antebellum has kind of found themselves again. These, like, What If I Never Get Over You? That song has a really beautiful chorus, and it builds so effectively. And now Pictures kind of features this warm, harmonic sound that they used to capture. It has a really country vibe and a really breezy vibe. It's kind of like American Honey, right when they were in their sweet spot. So I'm really encouraged by Lady Antebellum. I think they're doing really good stuff on this record, and I can't wait to hear more of it. And I think Pictures is a jam. I don't know if the hope is that it would be a single, but it's a jam. A comeback that's going less well would be Zac Brown Band. What the hell is going on with the Zac Brown Band, guys? They put out a new song called Warrior, and I suppose it is a tribute to the Army, but it is a big EDM track, and it's just confusing. I mean, they just put out Leaving Love Behind, and it was this kind of nice ballad where Zac was being confessional, but now this song, what the heck is going on? What on earth is going on with the Zac Brown Band? I think if you're going to do a big poppy song like this, it needs to have a simpler hook. It's got to be like, you're going to hear me roar. I just think of Katy Perry songs. You make me feel like a teenage dream. This one is like, no one's born to be a warrior. No one's born a something man. We're made who we are. It's like it's not that obvious of a hook. Even Chicken Fried would kind of work better with this production than this song does. Maybe they should redo Chicken Fried, or You've Got Whatever It Is. Those are nice, simple hooks in this style of EDM, because their lyrics are very inscrutable to me lately. I don't find this or Someone That I Used to Know very easy to understand as songs, and so when they're dressed up with all this production, it's confusing. It's confusing. And that was kind of it for new music this week. I didn't really listen to any new albums this week. A lot of new songs, but not any new albums. I'm still just spinning Mike and the Moon Pies and Tyler Childers left and right. Oh, speaking of Tyler Childers, guys, thank you for... After my little emo breakdown on last week's podcast, thank you so much for... so many people sent me messages and were just like, dude, you're doing great. You know, please remember that you're not so bad. And I appreciated that, guys. I can't respond to everything that gets sent to me, but I see it, and I appreciate all y'all's care and concern and telling me to stop being so hard on myself. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing that. I feel like, yeah, I get scared about, I just get scared. And, you know, today, like I said, was a great example. Like, even trying to get that interview with Riley, and I hope I'm coming across, like, appropriately whimsical and fun about that, because it was just like, come on, Grady, check yourself here. It wasn't that big of a deal. But that's how everything has been for the last 2 months. It's like one step forward, one step back. It's cool that someone was willing to be on the podcast, but I gotta learn the right way to do it. It's cool that I figured out I can get new gear, but I gotta figure out the right way to use it. You know, that's just how everything has been. And even like filming filming this podcast, I have like all these questions of, oh, is this going to ruin my ability to be honest, being on the camera? Am I going to sound normal? Well, is this now an expectation and I need to do this every week? How do I get new camcorders? How am I going to, I have a lot of questions. And it's funny that I feel like this podcast is half about country music and half about how to make a country music podcast. But that's okay. That's okay. And I have questions about how I monetize it, and I just have a lot of questions, and that's okay. In my sane moments, I'm having a good attitude about them. But I appreciate that you guys kind of brought me back down to earth and you said, Grady, we love you. You're kind of just being emo. You're kind of just being a little too emo. Don't worry about it. Don't be so hard on yourself. And I took that on. Thank you. Thank you for those messages. Now, moving forward, what am I going to say? Oh, this is neither here nor there. It's just a note I have that I didn't talk about. Chris Stapleton's Tennessee Whiskey is climbing the charts, the radio charts. It's entered the top 50 of radio play, like 4 years later. So, that's just happening. Just keep an eye on it. We'll check in on it later. But this would be really random if a cover song from 3 albums ago from Chris Stapleton decides to finally become the hit that it was obviously always meant to be. And maybe we should do a deeper dive on that one. But that's, I think, it for me, guys. That is going to be it this week. I had a lot of good stuff on the channel last week. We're going to put up a bunch of more stuff this week. And yeah, I feel like I don't even need to say that. I think it's time to bring in Flatland Cavalry and send us away. Although if you're watching on YouTube, there's no music in this. I'm not gonna take time to edit music into YouTube just for my videos to all get claimed. So I think if you want to hear the music clips while I'm talking, check out the audio. Otherwise on YouTube, we'll just keep it simple here. But like I said, let's bring in the Flatland and let me know your thoughts, and all love, guys. Have a happy Monday. Bye.